Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Marketing and Sales Mastery. And I'm super excited today. We have Jeff Farrington from Focus CFO, who is joining us. And actually, this is going to be the first of two sessions that we do. So we're going to start off. And Jeff, I'm going to throw it over to you and let you say what exactly you do.
Awesome. You told me I got 20 minutes to talk about me, so I like that. I appreciate it. No, basically, again, Jeff Farrington, Focus CFO. We're the largest provider of fractional CFO services in the country, as well as the largest in the state. We've been doing this for 20 odd years. I opened up the Michigan market back in 2018. Basically, companies on the smaller size, let's call it 3 to 30 million, though we have many clients that are larger, they don't need or want a full-time chief financial officer. So we'll provide them 1 day a week, 2 days a week, maybe even 1 or 2 days a month, depending on the size of the company. So it's giving them that expertise, but only in the amount that they really need it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think about it from the perspective as a fractional leader myself, right? I mean, and to
Yep.
me, the fractional CFO makes them, that is obviously a need for fractional, especially as a company is growing.
Yep.
So you think about it like people think, okay, well, I got a bookkeeper, I've got my accountant, maybe my CPA. What's that progression that would get you into needing a CFO and what makes that so
Yeah,
different?
good question. So a lot of people confuse it. That's probably the number one thing that we have to talk about and listen to prospective clients so they understand it. So we call it the foundational level. Whether you call them a bookkeeper, an accountant, a controller, every company needs one, and they're very important. They are the gatekeeper of expenses. They track transactions that have happened. As we call it, they look in the rear view mirror. Now, the
Mm.
CFO is looking forward. So once you get to, again, we have clients as small as $3 million, but by the time you get to 10 million, I would highly suggest that you have a forward-looking person. Again, it can be 1 day a week or something like that, because the CFO does things like 13-week cash flow, budgeting, forecasting, putting together KPIs, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later.
Hmm.
It's the difference between looking in the front windshield for
Hmm.
investments and forward-looking information versus recording what has happened. Both very important, but both very different skill sets.
And typically within an organization, are they working together then? Is that like a team? Like
Absolutely.
all those people would, in a traditional larger company, they would all report up to the CFO.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they work together because the data and information that the controller, bookkeeper, whatever you want to call the person,
Hmm.
has goes into what the CFO needs to use. One of the big differences is the CFO doesn't just work with the accounting person or accounting department. They're very closely tied to operations, whatever the industry is, because that's where the money is made. The accounting department records what has happened, and very important to have good numbers, whether it be for the owner, for the bank, for the CPA and taxes, whatever the case might be. But the CFO is working with operations to improve margins, to improve profits. So it's more investment forward looking.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's good. And without that, then obviously it's going to be and it makes me think of another conversation and how we all tie together. One thing we didn't talk about is how we know each other. So I'm going to take a
Oh,
quick
okay.
break on that, right? So we are both part of a Vistage TA group, which is a trusted advisors group for chief executives, and we have different disciplines within our group and. One of our counterparts is actually in the banking industry, and he's out helping people get those loans that can help purchase the capital that they need, to grow their business. So obviously, then this is a very important aspect of that piece of it.
Absolutely. You
So
know, one of the things companies that are growing, a lot of times your CPA will look to minimize profits in various ways to do it, so they minimize taxes. The bank
right.
wants to see profitability and cash flow. So there's a difference in perspective there, and the CFO kind of bridges that, going, yes, we have to reduce taxes as much as possible while showing growth, profit, cash flow so that you can get lending, whether it be from a bank, a large investor, whatever the case might be, because they
Mhm.
want to see profit and cash flow. So there's a difference of a perspective there.
Right. No, that's very important, very important. So as we flow through the process when we look at it
Yep.
from a leader, so sales and marketing mastery or mastery or marketing and sales mastery, sorry about that, obviously is around marketing and sales, but it's really looking at it from a higher leadership level, right?
Hmm.
Not down
Absolutely.
to the, what are you doing to get your leads, which obviously is an important part of it, but it's really about being part of a team. And that's the basis of these conversations. And if you think about it, if somebody's following, let's say like a L10 meeting from EOS, right? They're getting all their leaders together to
Yep.
have those conversations. And let's talk about how the sales and marketing actually interact with the CFO.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Good question. And let's go back to something you said there is it's a team. The
Hmm.
leadership should be a team. The right person, the right seat, using EOS verbiage. And I
Hmm.
was just with a prospective client yesterday, and they have a very bright, very hardworking person in one of those seats. And I won't get too specific,
Hmm.
but it wasn't the right seat for that person. And thus we're entering the picture. So it's not just having the right person, it's having the right person doing the right things every day. So working together with sales and marketing. Um, again, I had CFOs, I guess, can by pulling various levers can make money, but let's face it, sales and the lead generation of the marketing or the
Hmm.
brand awareness of marketing
Right.
that really drive the top line revenue.
Hmm.
So really, where I see the CFO fitting in is more on a broad spectrum with that group or that person.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is helping them define the return on investment, the ROI. And
Hmm.
I know a lot of marketing people go, well, you can't always put an ROI in marketing. I would
Well,
say
but you
objectively from my
should.
side, you better if you
Yeah,
want to get
that's
your point
right.
across.
Yep.
You better if you want to.
If you can't, then it's a problem, right? I agree.
Yeah.
Right.
And let's face it, some of it is fuzzy. But
Sure.
guess what? So is manufacturing sometimes. I mean, it's not just marketing that has a fuzzy result on trying to get an ROI. That's throughout the company. But you got to be able to try to tie it in the best you can.
Hmm.
And that isn't always black and white, it's often gray. So working to find out what the return on investment, or maybe they're entering a new product line. So what is our target margins?
Hmm.
They can help you define that. So it's giving the ammunition to the sales and marketing group so they can present to leadership and go, this is why we want to invest X amount of dollars on this new project, new brand, new whatever the case might be, a new sales team, new sales leader,
Yep.
whatever the case might be, to help them define the money aspect of it. It's not an end all, but it's one more tool in the toolbox that the sales and marketing crew can go to ownership with.
Yeah, sure. And I even think about like this time of year, right? I mean, everybody's thinking about what their next year goals are, right? So trying to figure out what are the company's objectives? Are we trying to grow? Are we trying to expand? And you come together and obviously looking at from the CFO perspective, like you said on margins, tie it into marketing that says, okay, well, here's our goals, which I think even marketing and sales, if those are separate organizations, which oftentimes they are, sometimes they're tied
And the
together under
size and the
under a
technical.
revenue chief revenue officer, but it's still saying here's what these goals are and how are you making sure you get them. And so my background, I think you know this and I think my audience knows it, but if they don't, in case they're seeing it otherwise, I was working in an airline, right? So I worked for a Fortune
You're a
500
pilot?
company. No, I was everyone always asks. No, they would ask if I was a flight attendant, as a matter
Oh,
of
okay.
fact. And I'm like, thank you, because those guys are always beautiful, but no. I'm like, anyway, but it was one of, I'm sorry, I'm diverting, but it's for fun. So I went in and was writing a check because it's kind of how old I am. But she's like, oh, are you a flight attendant? I said, no, actually, I'm not. And she's like, no, but your check says you are, because it was a picture of an airplane. And I was
Oh,
just like, okay, yep. And I said, no, actually, I'm the pilot.
there you go.
But anyway, so every year we went through a budgeting process, right? I mean, it was a whole like, and budgeting to me, it took a while to understand that because to me, budget is a limit, and it's not. It was the whole process to say, here's what our goals are, because here's what we're trying to attain for the year.
And I'll go a step further on that in a moment. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, and it was like they would have these objectives, but they would come back to us actually in a sales role, right? Because I was in sales for that time of my life, leading sales teams. But I we had to basically say I mean, they were good in their goal setting, right? Because they would come back to us and say, what do you think you can get? You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
tell us what you think you can get. And hey, by the way, tell us what kind of money you need, right? Budgets, whether it's dollars for doing things or whether it's, all the other fluff stuff we had to give out to try to gain market share and get that revenue coming in. And so it was a whole process. Go ahead. You were going to say
Yeah,
something.
and so it's one of the things I love to talk to people about is budgeting because again, you nailed it. Most people think it's a limit of
Mhm.
as we think about the budget, the family budget, that kind of thing. Well, we only
Yeah,
got so much money to spend, so we can't have pizza this week, it has to be next week, whatever.
right.
It's not a limitation, it's a management tool.
Hmm.
So what I mean by that is usually on an annual basis, you put a budget together, you go, these are my expectations for the year. But if sales are down, you got to change the budget. Sales are up, you got
Right,
to change the budget.
right.
Or here's another thing, all of a sudden it's June, you're 6 months into the budget, and marketing person comes and says, I got a great new plan, I got a great new idea,
Hmm.
concept. Something's available that wasn't available in December or November when we put it together. Doesn't mean the answer is no. What it is,
Right.
you now have to justify why it's a good idea. That's
Yeah,
business 101.
that's
If
right.
the company has limited resources, they have to define how to use those resources. If the sales or marketing person can justify and go, this is why I want to spend another 50 grand or whatever the number is,
Hmm.
boom, add it in. Or they can't justify and go, well, we'll talk about it again in November when we look at next year.
Yeah, because
So
that
again,
opportunity could be
it's just a
gone.
way to have conversation back and forth on how to best invest the limited resources any company has. No
Right.
one's an open book with unlimited resources. So it's a management tool. Or another thing is whether it be the CFO or the owner, they're looking at the budget and go, well, you're up 4%. Why?
Right.
Or you're down 10%. Why?
Right.
Again, doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a way to ask the question and highlight an area. So, for those that aren't in the financial realm, consider that budgets can be your friend because they help you identify variances. And variances
Yeah.
can be positive, negative, but most importantly, they get you to ask the right questions. So that's the way I wish people would look at the budgeting.
Well, and I tell you what, that is so important because there's so many times when I'm working with my clients and I ask for a budget. Let me
Yeah,
know what the budget is because I mean, especially from a marketing perspective, there's a lot of things we could do, but what's the budget? Like tell me what I need to know. Like, typically they'll tell me their goals, right?
yeah,
But they won't give me a financial budget to work with. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, I can still like come up with stuff and do it, but
sure.
then we're wasting time, right?
Or you're
And
shooting in the dark. You might hit
right,
the bullseye, but you might hit
yeah,
somebody else.
like let me know. I mean, and it's always like, and it's so hard because I think sometimes there's that fear of, well, hey, if I tell her how much I got to spend, then she's going to try to spend it all. Well,
No,
no, because it
absolutely.
absolutely should be justified with a goal that's going to do exactly what you say, hit a return on investment.
Yeah.
And marketing and sales should be able to produce those numbers. I mean, I lived by it, right? So,
Yeah, let me hit on another area that the CFO or the person I see can help out sales and marketing. And it's related, but it's a little bit different. That's
mm,
a dashboard or the KPIs, key
yep.
performance indicators.
Mhm.
It's not just, hey, let's put the money into sales and marketing and wait 3 months, 6 months, 12 months to see if we got it right. Are there forward-looking or, you know, after the fact
Mhm.
data that shows we're on the right path?
Right.
So, for instance, I did a lead generation in the last year that recently ended. I looked at the data, how many leads it gave me, how many converted into meetings, how many meetings converted into clients.
Mhm.
That was my dashboard because if it wasn't hitting the numbers, it wasn't just about re-upping the next year. It was, if I'm throwing money away throughout the year, then I'm going to have a conversation with the company that sold me the bill of goods. Or it's working. I'm going to tell other people in my organization, hey, you might want to invest in this as well. But it's also, do I spend more time on it? It's not just about investing that, it's about investing for me, my resources, me, or
Yeah.
do I invest in different areas? So KPIs, key performance indicators, are something that you
Mhm.
can use on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis to keep you on track with whatever the goals are, not just annually. So.
Right.
That can be worked in with sales and marketing. The CFO give them the data so
yeah,
that they can,
right. And we had,
and
I mean,
reverse.
and when you're talking about that from the progress, right, of what's coming through, I mean, and an example that I've had recently, we track, we try to say how many leads are coming in, how many from the marketing side of bringing the leads in through the sales process, and look to say, okay, we're bringing in good leads. They're not closing. Why? You know what I mean? So it's
Exactly.
like those
It goes back to
indicators.
asking the question.
Yep, and it's always and this goes back to the sales and marketing debate. It's like, well, they're not bringing in good leads, and they're like, well, they're not following up on the leads appropriately. They're great leads, right? So, and either one of them could be right. You know what I mean? So it's really understanding, seeing the problem in advance, not after we didn't hit the goal, right? And try to fix those, try
Yeah,
to
I
fix
mean, it
those
goes
areas.
back to having the data over a long period. So,
Mhm.
I was with, I spent a bunch of my career with K-Force. They were a headhunting firm, if you want to call it,
Yep,
staffing. We had both temporary and permanent. But on the permanent side, I forget the data now because it's been 20 years, but it was interview X number of people, you get X number of job orders. If the client interviews X number of people, you'll close X number of deals. Now, your first, second year person, the data is going to be different than a 10-year veteran.
right,
But what you can see is if you're tracking it, most 2-year people are all going to be along this line. If someone's down here, then you need to have a conversation. If someone's up here, the numbers being better doesn't always mean it's good. Maybe they're not presenting enough people. So again, it just goes back to asking why. But when you have data that you use over a long period of time and you track it and you make sure it's the right data,
right.
um, it can be very fundamental to the success of a sales and marketing organization.
Yeah, that's great. Now, do you see, so I'm going to go back to Focus CFO and the people that you put in
Yep.
place. Are they typically long-term fractional, or is it that they get to a certain level and it gets handed off to somebody
Yep.
full-time and you help them find that person? And
No, good question. And by the way, we use that data. I didn't want to use us as an example, but
yeah, right.
we do have the same kind of data that you track that
Yeah.
I'm saying that others should do. So we practice what we preach. But to your question, I think our average for all clients is 22 months, give or take.
Okay.
And for clients that have been with us at least a year, it's over 3 years. So we are long-term part-time. That's different than a temporary firm that's
Hmm.
short-term, full-time, or project-oriented that has a project and they're out. So this is long-term, part-time. And I have one client, I've been doing this 8 years with Focus CFO. Nope, take it back. 7 years with Focus CFO.
Uh-huh.
And I have a client that's been with me 7 years. They're
Wow.
my second client. They're still with us because we add value to the
Right.
company.
Yeah, it makes sense. And if it gets to the point where, I mean, I look at it even as a fractional marketer or fractional
Yeah.
sales leader, right? I mean, I know their goal is eventually to have their own person full time, but to have the skill set, right? It's
And
and
if
maybe
they do go to full time, that's fantastic. We
I,
count that as a win.
I
Sometimes we
at
mentor
100%.
somebody to move into that role.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
perfectly fine.
excited for them and frankly help them, either find the person or once they get in the role, how make sure that they're transitioning good. Like I literally had one client where I was on for a year and I did it for a year and
Mhm.
they finally hired their person and she was struggling a little bit and I'm like, let me come in because I know what she's going against, right? I mean, I was there. Let me help her get through, some of those hurdles that she needs and I'm sure you guys do the same thing. That's to me, that is, you're 100%. That's a win. It's it,
And let me make a suggestion. I can't remember the author, but it's called No Man's Land is the name of the book. It's an easy read, a thin book.
uh,
Someone else referred it to me, but basically it talks about a company grows. And at some point you have to decide as the owner of that company, do you want to keep growing through no man's land, or do you want to say, no, I'm fine with 5 million, 10 million, whatever the size of your company is.
sure.
And I can make a good living at this and sleep well at night and so forth. So, but the point is, if you're going to go through no man's land, there are struggles because, whether you're talking about a chief marketing officer, a chief financial officer, that's a lot of money and resources to invest. If you're a certain size, you can't afford that person, but you can afford a fractional person with the same skill set, but maybe they're 20% of the time. So the fractional model, and that's probably why it's been booming over the last 20 years, whether it be
Mhm.
marketing, sales, HR, CFO,
Mhm.
occasionally even operations, is it helps you get through that no man's land area. And for the business owners listening, I recommend you pick up the book again. I apologize, I can't think of the author, but
Yeah.
it's a good, easy read that sets the perspective. It was probably written 15 years ago, but
Uh,
it helps you go, maybe I don't need to go through no man's land to get bigger. Maybe I'm satisfied with where I'm at, and that's perfectly
sure.
fine. But if you are going to go through no man's land,
Hmm.
a fractional model is one of the ways that you can try to, from a personnel perspective, from a talent and resource perspective, that helps you get to that other stage until you're big enough to hire that person full time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I tell you what, we'll put it once we get this published, we will put it in the comments so that people
Awesome.
know how to get to that book. And also, we'll make sure that we have your contact information in
I
there as
appreciate it.
well, so that if you want to have some discussions and tell us a little bit about that process for you. Like if someone's like, oh, hey, maybe I need something, they
Okay.
reach out, what
Yeah,
happens?
we are an EOS company, so we very much use a process that they preach. So we'll have a discovery meeting. That'd be me going out there with the leadership or the owner and trying to figure out what their issues are, what their goals are, what their hurdles are. Explain a little bit about who we are, obviously,
Hmm.
and you have a conversation. Go, is this potentially the right solution to your issues? If you go past that, the next thing we do is we select one of the CFOs. I think we have 24 or 25 here in Michigan.
Hmm.
That's a good fit for that company because not every CFO is a good fit for every company and vice versa. So the area president, my role, will look at that and go, yes, this person is a good potential fit. We'll go back out there. We call that more of an assessment. And there's tools like a questionnaire that they fill out. We look
Hmm.
at their financials more in depth. We make sure we meet the people doing the transactional accounting. Maybe we're meeting the head of operations. And it's a much more in-depth, maybe a couple hour meeting where everyone's comfortable if that's the process, if that's the direction they want to go. And if not, there's no obligation. You know what?
Right.
I love to hear yes. If I don't hear yes, I want to hear no. Just
I
make a
agree.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if not, that same CFO, I might be able to put on another opportunity. So, and the CFOs are all for our organization. So if they're going to do CFO work, it's with our organization.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a process of getting to know the client, them getting to know us, and the CFO that be working hand in hand. And here's another thing. Two things that we try to, or I try to get past right away is one, these are not people that stand in the corner and point to other people to do things. As one of my CFOs said, they're hands-on strategic. We're dealing with smaller clients. They have to go in there and do the work,
Hmm.
not just a board meeting level person. The second thing is they're not an outside consultant. They are part of your leadership team. Many of my clients, if you go to their website, they'll list Jane Doe as their CFO.
Right.
Some might say Jane Doe from Focus CFO, but either way, they'll put the person on their website because they're the ones meeting with the CPAs, with the bankers. They're the ones meeting with the investors or
Hmm.
whomever it is. They are part in embedded into their leadership team, not just an outside advisor, uh, consultant that's telling what they should do and then not putting it into
And that funny.
practicality.
Right. Now there is something you said that I caution them on because you want to definitely get in and do the work. And I'm just going to say this from the marketing side. You got to be careful about like how much time you're requesting them to do
Yep,
some of the work because maybe it's a better profit advantage if they're not doing some of the nitty gritty. Like don't try to fill
absolutely.
that work with stuff you could hire someone in at a lower level, right? So you're just
Yeah,
trying to
and
balance
we
that.
bill out on a per day basis, not a per
Okay.
hour basis,
Right.
because
Okay.
as a trusted advisor, we want them to be able to reach out to us at any
Sure.
time. We might not be able to get back to them right away if we're at a different client. But yeah, if we get too much into the weeds, it's like, no, we're suggesting how to improve their transactional accounting folks, whether it be hiring another person,
Right.
training person to have, whatever, because that is a good point. You have to be very cognizant of how many hours you're spending on an account. If we're there
Right,
1 day a week, that's 8 hours approximately. It might be seven, it might be 10,
right.
but it's 1 day. If it starts becoming 15, 16, 17, you either got to up our service or we got to find different ways to accomplish the same goals.
Right. And you want to make sure that that expertise is being focused on the things. Of course they
Yeah.
can do it, right? I mean, if
Yeah, a
it's
lot of our
something
CFOs don't want to do the lower level accounting work. That's what they did 20 years ago. So,
right. And they
and it's
can,
not
but
the
would you
most
want
cost
them to?
efficient.
Does yeah.
Yeah, it's not the most cost efficient way for the
Yeah,
client
it,
either.
it's
So,
really not. It's really not. And just so if people, run into that, it's like it's not necessarily not being a team player because of course. I mean, I always say that. It's like I got my own business and obviously this is what I'm doing, but anywhere I go, I'll do anything. I mean, if it means I have to dump the garbage, I have to dump, you know what I mean? But after a while, do you want me to go around dumping all the garbage? I don't think so. You know what I mean?
and a side note, our CFOs are not taking out the garbage.
Okay. I know obviously it's just an example, but the point is you'll do what you need to do
I do.
as a team because I think that's most important is that you're really part of the team to help it get going, and help it stay bound. I was listening to a podcast and I wish I could remember who had talked about it, but it's been about a year ago and it talks about teams and it really talks about that leadership team is your core team and really who you have the most devotion to. That's your first, right? You talk about all the things in your personal life and where your devotion is, but that's your core team that you focus on. And obviously, as you have people reporting up to you,
Mhm.
you have that dedication to them as well. But I think sometimes these organizations work in silos, right? And they're like, well, but this is me and my team against, sales and marketing or against each other. And, I mean, that's not helpful. It's really working together.
No, and that's where something like EOS comes into play. Is when
Yeah,
you got to break down those silos. You got to work
right.
together as a team, or you got issues. But that's a cultural issue.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, all right, Jeff, anything that you want to say that we hadn't had an opportunity to do? It was a
Awesome. I appreciate you having me on, Cheryl, and
yeah, it's a great
taking
conversation.
this time just to talk about it because the more people talk and listen,
Listen,
the better we all do. So
that's right. All right. Well, thank you and have a great day.
thanks, you too. Take care.